This is the Astrology and Tarot Show with Jessica Adams.
Thanks, Shane. Here is your psychic astrology for the week starting January 19. And if you want a personal 2026 psychic astrology report, they're on my website. Your tarot this week is Aries, the Four of Wands, Taurus, the Three of Wands, Gemini, the Ace of Pentacles, Cancer, Temperance, Leo, the Ace of Cups, Virgo, the Three of Cups, Libra, the Ace of Wands, Scorpio, the World, Sagittarius, the Four of Pentacles, Capricorn, the Lovers, Aquarius, Temperance, again, and Pisces, the Empress. For those of you who do have your birth chart handy, if you have Aquarius factors, there are a few dates here, all about the group and about your friends. So, around January 19, the spotlight turns. Around January 20, there is news by email or the post. And then from around January 23, we have the heat rising and certainly things speed up. So to minimise the chance of friction with friends and groups after the 23rd, whether it's social media or the real world, everybody needs to slow down and cool down. If you have factors in your birth chart at 26 Pisces, 27 or 28 Pisces, this is the very last time that your inner world will be such a test of patience for you. From the 14th, the waiting game is over. This has been going on for a couple of years now, but if it's been about religion, psychics, therapy, counselling, hypnotism, mediumship, and anything on the inside, that ring-fenced situation is over near February 14. Finally, if you have your birth chart handy and you do have factors at 26 Taurus, 27 or 28, that revolution with your money or your real estate, your possessions or your business will end for good in April. The predictably unpredictable is almost over for you. Okay, the 12 signs of the zodiac. Aries, your house or your apartment, the area where you live, your background, your history, your heritage, your ancestors and your family tree is an opportunity just waiting, whether you need a solution that's really big, Aries, or whether you're looking for growth and expansion. Your need to belong to a certain place or live in a certain space is a good thing, capital G. It's an open door and a welcome mat. And until June 30, the Jupiter in Cancer cycle is offering you really quite sweeping solutions or fortunate turning points with the house, the land, the garden, the apartment, the real estate, your family circle, your household, whether you share, live with a partner or live alone, your hometown and your homeland. This is all about the fourth house of your chart. Now, if you're one of those Aries people who do have Cancer factors in your birth chart, you can double the luck. Jupiter is a symbol of tremendous growth over a 12-year period in your horoscope. And whatever you were up to, about 12 years ago, Aries, you planted an acorn, or one was planted for you, which is now beginning to grow. So, for example, you might have bought your house 12 years ago, or you may have had a baby 12 years ago who's now a growing boy or girl. It's on that level. If you go back around 12 years, I would allow 11 to 13 years. You'll see the full cycle as it comes back to you now. And the thing about this transit is it's the gift that goes on giving. So actually in another 12 years, whatever you're doing now will again bear fruit. So for example, if you're planting a garden or you've just started to put a mortgage down on an apartment, if you're sorting out your mother, negotiating with your brother and so on, in about 12 years from now, you gain. But you gain now too until June 30. Taurus, well, your friends, your acquaintances in social media and also in the real world, the group, will no longer be so confused or confusing after January 26. For the first time in many years, Neptune, a symbol of what is distorted or unclear, is out of your most social zone. Until then, if you are prepared to turn a blind eye to whatever is so unrealistic about your friend or about the group, then you will find that the fuzzy vision will continue, but only until around January 26, 27. Neptune cycles like this one create a shambles. It's a bit like the sea. If you go deep sea diving, you'll see all kinds of flotsam and jetsam floating in the water. And that's been a pretty accurate description of your group, your tribe, for quite a few years now. At the moment, everything is still random and it's floating, but it stops in the final week of January. And then there's a second bump on the road for you because around February 14, near St. Valentine's Day, the end of a waiting game, a very heavily ring-fenced situation with your friends or with the group also stops. Now, this might be a political party. It may be a social media website. It might be your bridesmaids or your football team. But whatever's been happening stops twice over the next few weeks, and then you will find there's a final endpoint in the final week of July, actually, when the karma also stops. Gemini. Well, I've been talking a bit in this podcast about the end of confusion. And if you are a regular listener at this show, you will know that this has been coming for a while with your career, your unpaid role, or your university or college degree. You may be a volunteer, a full-time carer, or a parent. You may be a CEO, or very powerful indeed. You might have a full-time course of study, but in all cases, Gemini, what's been going on for years now has been a total lack of boundaries. That's what happens when you get a Neptune transit. Everything and everybody is all over the place all the time, and nobody quite knows where the horizon just shifted to. You have done your best to try and contain and control the situation, to anchor it, and also to look for the lighthouse and the red and yellow flags. But actually, what's been going on is impossible to stop. But the weird thing about your chart is, and the interesting thing about your chart, is that it does stop. And it stops within a day or two of the 26th of January, according to your horoscope. What you then have is a second moment of truth, because around February 14, I would allow until February 16, Saturn will leave its cycle in the same zone of your chart. So this really heavily restricted and ring-fenced situation that you've been living with, where there has been no room to move, will also stop. So it's an odd one, this one, Gemini. It's the end of unreality. I would say years of unreality, but it's also the end of what you would call a fairly pretty heavy test of your patience. Cancer, the seventh house of your chart, ruled by Capricorn, which is triggered now with all these cycles going through Capricorn, rules your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, and also your former partner. It rules partnerships of all kinds, be they professional, platonic, or personal. It also rules your enemies and opponents. The seventh house is about the scales. So it's about the other person on the other side of the scales, be it a legally binding commitment like a marriage, or even be it an acrimonious dispute or conflict. Sometimes people have both cycles going on at once, so there's your other half, but there's also the other side. And sometimes it's just about one person who is very much with you in a partnership or who is against you. What's happening now is enlightening, illuminating, and well overdue, because for the first time in about a year, the sun is going through Capricorn. None of this has anything to do with the way things were. You have been through and come through the other side of the most intense cycle of change of your adult life, because between 2008 and also the year 2024, 2025, you went through Pluto in your opposite sign of Capricorn. So you were dealing with power struggles and control issues. All of that is ancient history, but this week will alert you to the past. And being a Cancerian, you need to look at your past to really update yourself for the future. So putting things in their correct context and putting them in perspective with that man or with that woman is a really good idea. That will help you with a situation now where you're being asked to put a spotlight on a particular face and make a choice, whether you wanted to or not, about the way it's going to be for the future. Leo. A major financial chapter or property chapter of many years, perhaps with business, a charity, a bank, cryptocurrency, or even really big stakes, has had no boundaries and constant muddle, and it's ending. Neptune in your 8th house pushes off around January 26. If you're one of those Leos with Taurus factors in your chart or Scorpio factors, it has been particularly difficult for you to manage ever since the year 2018. But whatever your personal chart looks like, this endgame transit in the 8th house of your horoscope tells you that clarity is coming back, and so are boundaries. In a way, it has been an escape from reality for you, a holiday from the real world, or a vacation from the everyday. That can also happen. And yet you would probably be the first person to say that you are welcoming what is now clear, real, and straight. So whatever ends around January 26, or whatever begins for you, is the beginning of the end of many years of no boundaries whatsoever. And because this has been in Pisces, in the 8th house of your chart, which rules your partners and also your family members, it has probably been about either just one arrangement or even a sequence of them where nothing was contained or controlled. That will shift enormously as you go towards the second half of February. And by the time you get to March, Leo, it's a completely different ballgame. Virgo. Well, all sorts of partnerships, duets and double acts, pairs and couples in your life, be they personal, work or platonic, have been confused and confusing for many years. They have bamboozled people trying to figure it out from the outside and frequently bamboozled you. That stops on the 26th of January or thereabouts as Neptune goes out of Pisces, your opposite sign. Maybe you can see it coming. Maybe you are already having discussions with a certain someone about what is going to change. In other cases, you may not have any anticipation at all, but nevertheless, in the final week of January, you will realise you are back to the way things were, or you are going to start all over again, be this a work partnership, a marriage, or even a situation that is totally platonic but still binds you two together. For example, you may be brothers. The return of boundaries, normality, and reality to your life will make a difference to just about everything else. But there is one final step to go, and that is karma. About 18 or 19 years ago, Virgo, you set up a karmic situation either with this person or with another face altogether, and now you are owed or you owe. So that is why life keeps repeating for you now with partnerships. And as a result of that, you will get closure by the final week of July 2026 as the karma will be settled. But until then, you may have to deal with what you would call a loop or a stuck record. What's going on is a chance for you to change on the inside, and that's what this karmic closure is all about. Libra. Well, the endlessly random, drifting, unknowable nature of everyday life, the currents and the cross currents with work, daily routine, housework, your self-care, maybe your health if it's an issue, your mental health if it's an issue, are almost at an end. The long transit of Neptune in Pisces in your solar 6th house has affected your paid work, your unpaid work, your volunteering, your study, and so on. Maybe you've switched roles many times over the last few years. When other people in your life on a daily basis don't know who they are, they can lose themselves in your world or lose themselves in a different space altogether. Maybe you would call it an alternative reality. Or you may find that you personally have been affected by that, so you are the one who has been living an unreal life. What's happening now is an end game, and it's really important. People talk a lot about beginnings in astrology, but actually the end of a cycle is equally vital. And the way things are from the end of January into February will show you two big bumps on the road. The first one is the confusion is over, and the second one is that the waiting game or the test of patience that you've had these last 2 years or so is also over. And that stops around February 14. There's one more stage to go for you, Libra, and that is karmic in nature. But by the end of July, when the nodes change signs, the constant repetition and the sense of deja vu that you have about your daily routine, your workload, and your well-being will also stop, as you will have been paid out karmically from 18 or 19 years ago, or you will have settled an old karmic debt. Scorpio, where your luck is in overseas or with foreign people in your own city or town with Jupiter, or with a different language or accent that you are hearing or reading online. You may also become, by June, happily attached to a person from another country, culture, or background. This can work two ways. So a man or woman with a different passport, an accent, or a cultural background to your own may become happily embedded in your life, opening up aspects of your personality and your world that make everything seem so much bigger. Jupiter in Cancer in your solar ninth house is about the expansion of your horizons internationally and across different cultures and religions. It can happen at home and it can happen away. Some of you will be taking advantage of this transit to export, move, emigrate, or travel more ambitiously by the 30th of June. If you want to know where the luck is in your life, is absolutely with expanding your view, not just of the world part of the World Wide Web, but also perhaps through the world of books, publishing, and academia, which are also ruled by the ninth house. If you're one of those Scorpio people who have Sagittarius factors in your birth chart, and that's quite common, you will find that what happens between June 30, 2026 and July 2027 will again open up your international or multicultural horizons in a very personal way that benefits you. Sagittarius. When it comes to a relative, your spouse, a living partner or household member, a landlady or a tenant perhaps, a flatmate, look at the ultimate result of this relationship. Together, you are in the last stages of what has been so muddled for so long. You never know what's going to end up, where it's going to end up, and where the tides are going to land. All sorts of flotsam and jetsam has been floating around for you, either in the same house or apartment for many years, or in a series of them. So you may have been one of those Sagittarians with just that sort of family, or you may have been sharing a different sequence of apartments or houses with people who created that atmosphere for you. Now, you may have known about this for some time, but from the final week of January, particularly around January 26, 27, that stops. So, for example, somebody may move out, or there may be a conversation about where the boundaries are going to be now. There is a second stage to this cycle, which is so important to you because it's about where you come from and where you live and who you're related to. And that happens around Valentine's Day, so February 14, when Saturn will finally go out of Pisces as well. It's not quite completely clear for you because you are still owed karmically, or maybe you owe, and that has to be closed off for you on a spiritual level at home with real estate, with the family or the household, and it won't happen until the final week of July, according to your horoscope. If you are one of those Sagittarians with Cancer factors in your birth chart, you stand to gain, your luck is in, you are helped, protected, or downright fortunate by June 30. Capricorn, well, financially, or with real estate or business, it's about power or no power. If you win or you don't win, the money, business, or lifestyle game in these next few weeks. In all cases, Capricorn, it's a really good time to ask yourself what you value most. The bits and pieces of yourself and your life budget, which may have been ignored or overlooked, now require attention. This is a really unusual cycle for you. You have Pluto going through Aquarius and your second house of personal income. Meanwhile, from June 30, for a really useful 12 months, you have Jupiter in Leo in your 8th house of joint finance, joint assets, and joint real estate. So maybe you're aware of that now. But even if you're not, you have a fair amount of number crunching to do this week, and it should extend into February to really help you with the future. From June 30, when Jupiter goes into the sign of Leo for the first time in 12 years, It will enter a sector of your horoscope that is associated with partnership finance, partnership houses or apartments, or business interests, and also the family as a whole. So your luck is in a bit later. For now, though, you have to really work with what's going on. And this transit with Pluto is about the self-control that gives you control and the willpower that empowers you. The situation still feels extremely intense, and it will into February. But eventually you will see an opening, a solution, an opportunity. And in July and August, it will start working for you in your astrology chart. Aquarius. Well, Pluto in Aquarius transforms your appearance, your title or your profile, slowly but surely, more than once, and now it's happening again in the most dramatic way, offering a combination of endings and beginnings all at the same time. It may be your entry on Google, it may be your social media profile, or your reflection in the mirror. It may be your portrait. What happens on the outside, which is so external, is a reflection of the power that you do or don't have. Capricorn had this cycle before you, and you may want to talk to Capricorn about what they experienced. It may be something really fundamental about your personal appearance, like a condition that you're living with, or it may be far more to do with the title that you have, the reputation that you have, or the way that you're seen online. All of this stuff seems to be higher stake at the moment, and that's because of the cycle that you're going through. But what you're being led towards is the realization that self-control will give you the upper hand over the way that you're seen, and that actually nothing better than true grit is going to work for you. It's really common in this cycle to find that other people, the internet, or large organizations try to take over how you are seen or how you appear. It can also be pretty common to find that the universe as a whole seems to be dominating you and railroading you with your profile or your look. None of that has to happen. And actually what this week does is remind you that when you run yourself and you control your own world and who you are as other people see you, then you find real strength. You could call it spiritual weight training. Pisces. Well, this Uranus and Taurus cycle is with you until April. It's about your brother, your sister, your cousin, and or your neighbour. And it has been there since 2018. So it's quite a big deal that you're in the final months of it. Basically, what this cycle is all about, Pisces, as you know very well by now, is that the revolution sets you free. Everything that could happen to turn your world upside down, with or through a brother, sister, cousin, or neighbour, has probably been rolled out over the last few years. But now here we are, landing in 2026 with the end of the cycle approaching at Easter. So in a way, this week is about understanding that you need to gain from it. So it's not enough to say life has been up and down or unpredictable and that you never know what's going to come next. What you actually need to do, according to your horoscope, is to understand that everything that's happened has meant a break with the past that sets you and he or she free, and that there will be more to come. So rather than continually expect this to go on all through 26, you have to understand it stops in April, but also now, February, March, April, you are going to see some sort of sign-off moment as well. It won't go on forever, but it does go on for a little bit more. The rules with this cycle are that whenever you set yourself free by breaking with the past or breaking away, you have to acknowledge and understand that other people need to be free as well. The Uranus and Taurus cycle is very much about independence, revolution, which is a big word, but it is very slow as well. It happens over a number of years. When it spikes, it does so a bit like an electrical storm or a lightning strike. But then you go back to the same old humming sound in the background. And that's what's happening this week. If you can give yourself and he or she enough room to move, enough autonomy and enough space, then you will find that life is much easier. It's only when the revolution and liberation is a one-way street that you turn to run into problems. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch up with you next week.